Once again, it's good to see everyone. Appreciate your being here, and let me join with John in congratulating all of our young people for their various accomplishments with Lads to Leaders, and certainly I think John and the others are to be commended for the effort they put into it. You know, we stress this on the young people, but if it weren't for parents and elders and deacons being involved in this program, it certainly wouldn't be possible, so word of gratitude to them. Tonight is a bittersweet moment for me. Tonight is the last night that I will speak to you as your preacher. Next week, I will be here, but of course the gospel meeting will be going on and I will not be doing the preaching. And I was just thinking of some parting words as I was deciding what to say. We've been together for a little over 26 years now, almost 26 and a half years, and it's time to move on. During that time, we have laughed together, we've cried together, we've accomplished some good things as a congregation, I believe. We've seen growth, not only numerically, but we've seen spiritual growth as well. And I suppose one of the most gratifying aspects, at least from this side of the pulpit, is to watch the young people. As I look out, most of these young people were born during this time, and I've watched them grow. And of course, some of them were youngsters when I came here, but it's amazing to watch these young people grow up and to mature. And during this time, as I say, we've laughed together, we've cried together, we've celebrated the marriages of many of our young people. We've also mourned at the loss of many of our church family. If my records are correct, and I could have missed some, but I think we've had at least 69 deaths within the congregation. Either members or spouses of members in this 26 years. And I want to say it's been an honor to me. It's been a great privilege to be with this congregation as minister, and Joanne and I are both very thankful for having been given this opportunity to work with this great congregation. I wasn't sure how it was going to be. I was leaving, Illinois is not southern compared to here. We were further south, but for a boy from Alabama to go to Ohio was quite a switch. To move from a town with one traffic light to Columbus was culture shock. And I confess the first day I was here, Ronnie was taking us up to look for a stove up at Sun TV, and I could hear the traffic on the highway, and I thought, boy, what have you gotten into? Well, the traffic's not quite so bad. Maybe I've gotten used to it, but it was a good thing that I got myself into. And it seems like only yesterday that we pulled up in that big Ryder truck and it was raining, or had been raining. A bunch of the men showed up to help us unload the truck, and they helped unload my library down here at the building. And I remember there was a plate of cookies with a welcoming note on it from Shirley Living. Shirley's not here tonight, but I asked her if she remembered that, and I didn't know who Shirley Living was. Had no idea. Found out she was my neighbor. But that was the beginning of so many acts of kindness as we were welcomed to the Alkire Road congregation. And little did I dream when I came here that it would be 26 and a half years later before we left. Because I remember some friends in the South said, "Ohio? Why are you moving to Ohio?" And I said, "At least it's not Michigan." But I took a lot of grief for that. But it has been a great time. And, invariably people ask, how do you feel about leaving? Well, if you'll pardon the cliche, it's bittersweet. The sweet part is not really knowing where God is, what He has in mind for us. I know there's something there. We just got to find it. And Lord willing, we will continue to be doing the Lord's work to the best of our ability. The bitter part is the fact that we have to leave so many dear friends and loved ones behind. And I suppose it's extra difficult because this congregation was the home for our children. Michael was 11 when we moved here. Bonnie was 9. Michael preached his first sermon in this very pulpit. And in talking to Michael about his years here, he still remembers some of his Bible class teachers. And I don't mean to embarrass anybody, but he mentions 3 teachers. He said one of the best teachers he had was Mark Taylor. He said Mark was tough, but he was good. So Mark, stand congratulated there. He also remembers Walter Campbell and Larry Casebolt. They were both excellent teachers. And this congregation has a long history of a good Bible class program of good teachers. And if the young people will apply themselves, they can get a lot of Bible knowledge in our classes. This is the congregation where Joanne and I passed through our middle-age years, and now we're staring the golden years in the face. Don't know what lies ahead. As I say, over the years, we've seen a lot of members come and go. Some have moved on to other places, to new jobs, to better things. Some have passed on to their eternal reward, and frankly, I think it'll be a great day when we can be reunited with many of our loved ones who've gone on. And I'm not going to start naming for fear of leaving out some relative of yours and offending someone, but we've had some great, great Christian men and women in this congregation who passed on, and certainly we can look forward to a time of being reunited with them. And sadly, others have fallen away, have left their first love. And again, our prayer is that they will come back and be restored before it's too late. For 26 and a half years, I have strived to challenge the congregation. And I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I maybe didn't do that good a job. It's hard to know what to say because there's so many needs in a congregation of this size. You know, you've got non-Christians that you want to teach. You've got weak Christians who need to be nurtured and brought on. And then you have older Christians who need more meat of the word, and sometimes it's very difficult to know. But the bottom line, I've honestly tried to preach the truth without fear, without favor. I've always strived to preach the truth in love, without being ugly, without being harsh. And I'm sure there were times perhaps when I failed to accomplish this, but my prayer is that I leave this congregation a little stronger than it was, just as I know that Tim is going to come in and he will carry on the work. You know, when I came here, this congregation was very strong, very sound, and much of that credit, I think, goes to Emmanuel Darty, a good, sound, faithful gospel preacher. And so it was easy to pick up and to go on. And I hope that Tim will be able to pick up and have a good work here in the coming years. You know, this congregation has so many things to be grateful for, to be proud of. She's involved in so many good works, not only of mission works, but of benevolent works. We support missionaries around the world. But not only that, on a local sense, our elders have taken a stand against false teachers. When Jeff Walling was being brought in, I remember some of the elders and I went and met with the eldership that was bringing him in, and we brought up some of the false doctrine that Jeff Walling was teaching. A lot of elderships wouldn't have done that, and our elders are to be commended for having the courage of doing things like this. And I remember about 20 years ago, we mailed out Goebel Music's book, Behold the Pattern, which exposed a lot of the false teachings of Rubel Shelley and Jeff Walling and Mike Cope and others. And the elders took some heat for that. We had some of those books glued together. You talk about going to a lot of work for spite, but we had some people that glued the pages of those books together and mailed them back. That's how angry they were to get them. But again, the elders are to be commended for having the courage to send these books out and to expose this false doctrine. And on more than one occasion, this congregation has coordinated relief efforts. I remember the flooding in Missouri. We filled 7 semi-trucks, and I know many of you were here daily helping to load those trucks to go over to Missouri to the victims of the flood there. And we took a group of our teenagers to North Carolina. I think John and Jason Ridgway perhaps were in charge of that group. And then in Katrina, not only did we send several semis of relief supplies down there, but this congregation, many of the members went down and helped with cleanup. And eventually we did a door-knocking campaign in that community. And so this congregation is known for her good works. Whenever disaster strikes, we've had congregations in the area call and say, hey, what's Alkire Road going to do? I said, what? Well, we just figure Alkire Road will do something. They always do, and we want to help. And that's the kind of congregation this is, and I pray that she will continue to be that way. It's been good to be associated with a congregation known for her good works and rather than for bickering and infighting and division. I remember the first few months I was here, I went to the dentist office and I was filling out the paperwork, and it had place of employment, and I put Alkire Road Church of Christ. And you know what that lady said to me? She said, oh, you're the church that gives away clothes, aren't you? I said, yeah. I didn't know much about it because it hadn't come around that year, but it was amazing to be known as a congregation for good works rather than a congregation, yeah, those people can't get along, or those people have divided 3 or 4 times over the years. And so it was great to be associated with a congregation that's known for her benevolence and her good works. You know, the unity of faith that we strive for is the same as it was 2,000 years ago when the Lord established His church. We see a lot of congregations around the brotherhood who've gone off in all sorts of directions. Social gospel, entertainment, recreation, fun and games, feel good about everything. This congregation, her elders have kept her on the straight and narrow. The mission is the same, to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to a lost and dying world. Not only to save the lost, but to restore the erring, to strengthen those who were in the church, to help those who were in need. And that is the work of the church, beloved. And I pray that these elders will keep this congregation on that same path, because that's the direction that we need to be going, not just here, but all congregations need to be. And I pray that this congregation will continue to have unity. Looking back, Emmanuel was here about 21 years. Bill Renner was here. We've been in this building for roughly 50 years. And to my knowledge, there's never been a division. I look around at other congregations. In fact, I preached a gospel meeting down in Kentucky, and there were 4 congregations in a town of 5,000 people. And they all came out of the original congregation. They couldn't get along. And so it's great when a congregation has a history of 50 plus years of working together in peace and harmony. And again, the elders get a lot of credit for maintaining this unity. Preachers are often asked when they leave, well, do you have any regrets? Well, I suppose every preacher does. There have been times when we've tried to preach to reach certain people with the gospel, and it failed. And I know it's not the problem with the gospel. Maybe it's the preacher, maybe it's the prospect. But yet we look back and we're saddened that there were those that we were unable to reach. And some of you know who you are. And for those who've never obeyed the gospel in this time, I hope that you'll do so before it's too late. Whether it's my preaching or what it is, find the problem. Accept the saving grace of Jesus Christ and obey the gospel. Another regret is that I didn't get to know all of you as well as I would like to. We've developed some very strong friendships. Many of you are as close or closer than blood family. You've been there in times of sickness and times of sorrow, and for that, we express our appreciation. We express our love, Joanne and I both. And speaking of regret, let me say that if I have said or done anything that you were offended by, I beg your forgiveness and I ask that you pardon me. And certainly it was not intentional. I know sometimes things are said or done in a joking way or not even considering how it would be taken, and people are offended. And so if I've offended you, I do apologize for that. Before I close, I would like to say one more thing. I wish nothing but the best for this congregation, for her elders, for her deacons, for every family of this congregation. And believe me when I say there is no ill will, there's no animosity, there are no hard feelings, at least on our part, and I feel confident the elders would say the same. We are parting, as I told another eldership. They said, "Why are you leaving?" And I said, well, it was time for a change. I said, we're parting on amicable terms. That was a Bill Phillips term, amicable terms. Not sure what that means, but it sounded good. There's no ill will. And so I hope no one thinks that I'm leaving hurt, mad, upset, angry with anyone, because I'm not. This is simply one door closing and another door opening for another work. Just don't know where it's going to be yet. Do covet your prayers wherever we go, that we will continue to be able to do good work, and I will continue to pray. We will continue to pray for this congregation. We'll pray for Tim and his work. I know that Tim will do a great job. He's a good man, and I certainly wish him well. And I said I hope he can have as many years here as I've had, and he'll be ready to retire by then, because he's starting here a little later than I did. But that'd be great if he can have a good long tenure here, because so many congregations today are not able to keep preachers for just a few years. In closing, I would leave you with the words of our text from Numbers chapter 6, verse 25 and 26. And I guess this summarizes my desire for this congregation. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. That's my heart's felt prayer and desire for this congregation. We're going to close by extending the invitation of Christ, as we always do. Tonight, if you're not a child of God, you can become one, coming in faith, repenting, turning from your sins, confessing his name, and being baptized, and become a part of the Lord's family, the church. Or if you need the prayers of the church, if you need to come back and be restored, do that as well. Whatever your need may be, let me urge you to come while we stand and while we sing.